Right, so as I was saying, but now this is planting our broad beans that we sowed a month ago. As you remember, we originally planted them in boxes in our greenhouse. I then put them outside under this netting. If you can see this frame, Casper, it's a very simple, Harrods Horticultural sell this. Very good, they're simple frames, they come out of the ground. You get this netting. This netting is perfect more for brassicas because it stops all the butterflies, caterpillars, everything getting in there for when you have those. These plants don't need protecting. I would stress that. Broad beans don't. I'm only protecting them because we've got a lot of pigeons around here and the pigeons haven't got that much to eat and they might attack these young plants. After about 2 weeks, I'll remove this netting because I'll need this for something else, but it will just act as protection. And that's why I've had them hardening off for a week now. And look at those plants. Those were the things we planted 3 to 4 weeks ago. Look at those beautiful, healthy plants. These then are the Mange 2, which we're gonna put those in. These were actually they're sugar snaps. These were the sugar snap Nairobi. These were the Bunyard's Exhibition broad beans. So I'm going to quickly show you, and don't worry, you're not going to have to watch me plant all these plants. I'm going to quickly show you how they should be planted. And I say, both of them, I'm just protecting for temporary reasons the young plants from pigeons, but they do not need protecting. There's other plants do, but not these. So if I go into my little netting and I take one of the boxes of broad beans, and I put my line out already, so they're in a straight line. Basically, and it's very simple, is that get out the advantage of having them all in one box is they're all there. If you had lots of pots, say you planted them individually in plastic cups or pots, it's absolutely fine. But this is easier because you can just take all the plants out. So I just dig in to access a plant, and I watered these heavily last night. So you could see this is all really good wet soil. Put little hole, in he goes. Most important is to firm him in, really make him firm. So there's one, and I like to put basically my broad beans about 45 centimetres apart, double rows. Luckily, my trowel is about 45 centimetres. So if I get another plant out, there we are, put that, and what I would actually do is to keep it simple, and then there's plenty of distance. I'm putting him the same distance roughly from the string as the other side. In goes the plant, firm him in, really firm, he's in. Now some of the plants will look stronger than others because they'll have been at different places in the box and had different light. That's why they just need this early protection, so they don't need pigeons and other things to try and eat them and upset them. And hopefully they'll all turn to really good plants. Now I've dug out, got 4 plants there. Now each plant wants to be about 15 centimetres apart. That's roughly the length of my handle. So I make another hole, do the same there, like that. 2 holes done. Get my plant, one nicely in, nice and firm. Get another one, nice and firm. And so on. So if I'll just plant these last 2 to show you, I now know roughly that will be, even by guesswork, there we are, handle. You know, you get used to it. These last 2, because I've got them loose, I will then, when we've finished, plant the rest of this box. I say some will be a bit curled over because they've been in the middle of the box. These probably could have been planted a few days ago, but unfortunately I didn't have time. So those are the broad beans, and I'll continue the row, and there'll be, I say, with the 2 boxes, if I need another row, I'd leave a gap of about, from here, I'd leave a gap of about 60 centimetres there, so you've got room to walk up, do the picking either side, then do another double row. But always do it in double rows. with broad beans, depending on where you live, you can sometimes, they can attract the wind and blow around a bit. In which case what I do is I put 2 bamboos either side and run a string down either side so it holds them and stops them all blowing over. But we could come to that when they've got bigger and if needed. Now, for the sugar snaps, I've built a very rudimentary frame here. Stake, bit of wire, staked it all together, hammered it in the ground, because they like to grow up something, up a wall, up a bit of pea wire. You could buy a little pea netting, buy whatever. But I say I've just made a metal frame. I make these, got several of them now. These are really easy. I'm just making a trench. So to show, making the trench with my trowel. Basically just 3/4 of a trowel depth, and I'll show you why in a second. Made my trench. Now in here, and this will go wrong to start with, but if you can get it right, we planted, if you remember, all these in rows. If we can get it right and untangle them, you try and dig them out in rows and put that row straight into the trench. So here we go. Here's just untangling. Just got to be delicate because they're young, tender, delicate plants. And I'm trying to get all this row out. And there is a row, or the semblance of a row. Once you start, it gets easier. So it's a bit like cutting a cake. Don't want to snap the plants. A bit like cutting a cake. Get the thing there. And what I'm trying to do, I say, once you've got tucked into a box, here we are. So we've got some plants there in the thing, and all we do is we're not going to upset them at all. Lay them on the wire, and press that firmly in so that we're not upsetting their roots at all. They're still in our soil. I'll do another one just to show you. Another slice of the cake. Out he comes. So you can see all the roots here. We're laying that in. He has come loose, but we'll put him back. And lay them on here, then they'll naturally grow up this wire. Don't want them flat. There we go. So they're in. Here's one came loose, put him there. I don't bother thinning these out or anything. That's why I did them in those rows in the seed boxes, and you just slice up your rows like slicing a cake. So it's really quick. Then just get this bit of soil here, backfill, and again must be firmly pressed in. And then I'll water. And again, they'll be under temporary netting for a couple of weeks just to protect these young fragile plants. And as they grow, once you start them in the wire, they'll naturally follow it. But in about a week, I'll come back and just feed any through. But at the moment, while they establish themselves, you just want them firm. So really simple, very straightforward. Trench, slice of cake, in they go, press it in and backfill on it. So what I'm going to show, we just go out of here, I'll show you the advantages of why I've said planting some things in seed boxes, some things straight in the ground. Because in the seed boxes, you can see if a crop fails. And if I've had a failed crop, you might remember we planted some French beans a few weeks ago. And I'll show you in the box now, of the French beans I planted, we're heading back into my greenhouse. Of the French beans I planted, here we were. Those were the safaris, all in rows of 12, 6 rows. You can see hardly any have grown. And at least if we'd planted them directly in the ground, you'd have your whole row of ground with massive holes. by growing them in these boxes, you're only transplanting into the ground healthy plants. You're not going to have holes all over your vegetable patch. The reason why this failed also, because I knew I was chancing it, because as I said, my seeds hadn't arrived this year. So these were last year's seeds, or even 2 years ago seeds, and I looked at them and the date ran out last year, the 9th, 2019, which is why you must keep an eye. I knew that when I planted them. I took the risk, tried it, they haven't worked. As it is, I have now received some 2020 seeds and I've instantly replanted. I'm also double planting again, as I was saying, and another thing, those broad beans have now gone in the ground. I'll probably in 2 weeks' time do another thing of broad beans and try and plant them in, and so then we should then have broad beans all from June right through to September. I'm also, just to show, hardening off. These are other things I've just made again, little frame here, just to protect from the pigeons and birds these young plants. Those are some Oregon sugar snap March 2. Look at my sweet corn, look how healthy they look. We only planted them a few weeks ago. Here's the courgettes. 3 of the plants have done really well. Again, the ones on the right, the Tuscany, the seeds were out of date and only 1 has worked. So, but at least I haven't wasted the time in the ground and loosed it. And then at the back, look at those squashes, absolutely fantastic. So these I put out yesterday. I'll leave them 4 or 5 days to harden off, and then they'll be ready to go in the ground. But that is the advantage of planting in boxes, is you can see where a crop succeeds and where a crop fails. Anyway, hopefully that was useful. Thanks very much.